Betul kan? Betul kan? Oh ya, harus pakai begitu. Iya, posisi itu aja. Dua hari. Hah? Posisi dua hari. Posisi agak keadaan. Aku selesai model juga. Win. Kalau kamu puasa, kamu bisa lebih. Nanti ada jadi ada dari bau di kumar putri terkait ini देखा जाओ मार्केट में नहीं था खादों की जरूरत नहीं ये जो आपको नहीं बोलो आंटी काबिल ना जब खादों आंटी ने फिर कंट्रोल फिर आपने अपना कलमाजी अगर दौर हो और जो मैंने पूरी कमाना कौन बोलो और जो मैंने पूरी कमाना itu itu kan kalau kalau itu ini yang aneh कोई तरह का दुनिया तो दे और कौन करता है कोई तरह क्वेश्चन है मांगो तो ठंडा है इतने ना गरम होती तो भी हाँ आखिर हाँ बढ़ जाएगा हाँ हाँ ऊपर जाइए ना कौन और कुछ है
The void operators, how we can configure the void operators and delete. And another operator we learned we need to know is about type of. In the unary operators, we need to understand these operators: delete, void, type of. Yesterday I showed you how to use that void, right? How we can configure that void and use the void operator. So delete operator is used for deleting any property, So void indicates that, so you are discarding the return type, that is void. And we have an operator type of. Type of is actually, it returns the data type of variable. So what type of data is stored in the variable? It is defined by using the type of operator. So technically, type of operator is used to define the type. For example, see, suppose we are creating here. Yeah. So we are creating a script and so a function, and we have some data. So we have some data here. So we have data where product, and the product is an object. It is having name. So it is having some price, and it is having some stock. Now we need to know what is the data type of these values stored in the reference, because sometimes what happens is data comes from other sources. So some other technologies, from the backend they send data. When data comes from other sources, then so we need to be sure about what type of data is exactly coming. That you can understand by reading the type of the data. So here I'm using document.write, and we say name is equal to, so name, what is the type of name? That means name is what type? We need to understand the type. Then we can use the operator type of, and for which variable, product dot name. That means why it is an unary operator, because it works on only one value reference. That means one operand only. So name is, so what type? It will return the type. That means product dot name. What is its type? It will return. Similarly, in the next line, I said price is. We need to know the type of. So type of product dot price. We need to know the product price. In the next line, we need to know about stock is, and we need to configure. So here type of product dot stock. We need to understand this. Now you can see that this is going to return the data type. what type it is going to return the data type and configure the data type. So that means understand the type of value coming, and you can see that it will return the type of those values. That means name is a string, price is a number, and the stock is a boolean. What is the advantage of this is later it is very important for validating. When anybody inputs a value, so and we want to restrict the value, then we can verify that. We can verify. For example, suppose the details for name, price, and all these we need to collect from a prompt. So I am using where name is equal to prompt. I am using prompt. Enter name. I am defining name. Similarly, suppose I am using some price. Price is equal to some prompt, enter price, like this. User will enter the details. We need to collect the details and use the details. Now we need to make sure that when user is entering the details or passing the details, or you can directly define here. Suppose here I am currently I am just giving the name as suppose 34,000, like this. What is problem with JavaScript is already we know that it will allow any type of value. It will allow any type of value. This name is assigned here, and this price is assigned here. So that price is assigned here. That means these values are collected and displayed here. But very important is it should allow those values if they are the same type. That means if name is not a string, it should not allow to store. Currently it will allow to store anything. We don't have any restriction. It allows to store anything. Name is number, price is number, stock is boolean. We should not allow. Then what you can do is actually, so what we can do is we can write a condition. So if type of name, so that means this is type of name. Let's put in a parenthesis. What it will return? If type of name is equal to string, if it is equal to string, if type of name is equal to string, then only allow to store the name. Otherwise, display some message saying that else you can put a message here, else you can put a message. The message saying that document.write, so name must be string. This message we have to do. So and we can print the details. If it is perfectly defined, we can access the details. I will remove that and we will print those details here. So that means what is this condition we have written? The condition is nothing but we are verifying what they have entered. If name is not a string, it will not allow to store these values. So if name is a string, so mobile, if name is string, then it will allow and it will display those values. Of course, we are not displaying values, we are displaying their types. We can display those values. So how you verify whether they entered a string or not? How you verify whether they entered a number or not? How you verify that the value is a boolean or not? That is very important. And you can do that by using an operator type of. So type of is an operator which will verify what type of data is stored in the memory, and it will return the data type. It is very helpful for restricting the types and understanding the data types, right? This is what actually the unary operators we have. And the other unary operators we have delete, void. We have plus is an unary operator, minus is an unary operator. It is nothing but, suppose I say var x equal to 10 and var y is equal to minus x. That means it will give the negative converts that positive into negative. That is only the point. It converts the negative into positive, right? Suppose what is the purpose of tilde operator? So this is the operator. This is exclamation. What is the purpose of this operator? That means suppose if x equal to true and y is equal to not x, that means actually y is equal to false now. That indicates that it is not true, not true. These are the general unary operators because they perform operation on a single operand. They perform operation on a single operand. These are all unary operators. Next, important in JavaScript, we have arithmetic operators. Nothing special. Arithmetic operators are same like other programming languages. You have one extra is there. Currently, we are learning JavaScript. So ES6 and higher versions. That means we are dealing with ES6. So that means ES5 and higher versions. So from ES6, some new operators are there. Arithmetic operators plus, minus, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulus division for remainder value. So modulus division. And we have exponentation. This is the new operator. This is actually new in ES6. We call this as exponent operator. We call this as an exponent operator. This is an exponent operator and it is new. That means suppose I say 2 double asterisk 3. So that means 2 to the power of 3. Actually, in older versions, we have to use a function called math.pow. So power and 2 comma 3. So math.pow 2 comma 3. So that means the power value, that is the configuring and defining the power value. So that is new. So this is a new into earlier versions. We need to use this. Now we are using this. These operators are used to perform various operations, handle. You may generally think like why we need all these arithmetic, because we are using a programming language. We are building applications for the clients. Then lot of mathematical issues will come which we need to solve for the client requirements. For example, you see, suppose I opened a HDFC banking website. So when I open this HDFC banking website, you can see that in this HDFC banking website, you will find that they will provide you at the bottom, you can see here. You can see, you can see that. So they will provide you calculators. EMI calculator, car loan calculator, two-wheeler calculator. Now, when I open this calculator, you can see that this is a loan calculator. Now, in this loan calculator, they will give you some options. That means they will provide you some options for doing the calculations. That means you need some mathematical functions to use here in order to perform those mathematical operations and return the results. For every business, we need such type of calculations. And these all types of calculations can be managed. All types of calculations can be managed. Observe that in this we are sliding the values and we are defining the values, and you can see the years and the sliders are there, and the interest rate, how much it is, and you click on calculate. So it should get that amount and display here. Monthly EMI, how much you need to pay for that particular option. So you click calculate, it should go. I hope you know that some mathematical calculations are working in the background. Some mathematical operations are working in the background. I think you know that there must be something happening mathematically in the background, right? So that means here, this is very important to understand that lot of calculations are required for business. You are not learning any mathematics here, but you should have a little bit knowledge of how to use these mathematical functions, especially building websites for various types of clients. Even a hospital website contains a BMI calculator, body mass calculator. That means even a hospital website also contains some calculations. Lot of calculations need to be handled. Designing this is simple, but handling the manipulations behind this is required with some operators. So that is the reason you need to know about these all type of operations, how to handle. So arithmetic operators, so you may ask like why I need division, why I need modulus division. Of course you need that. So for building different types of gadgets like this, you need to use them. For example, achieving this type of, see, when I'm moving the slider, its value must be displayed inside this. That you can manage. That is not a big issue here. We can manage. That's not a big issue. So because these kind of designs, let's create this design first. Suppose I'm showing you. That means why you need mathematical operations. I will show you a simple option here. Suppose EMI.html. So let's create a design here. So doc type HTML header. Title is some EMI. And here we have link relation is equal to style sheet. And href is from node modules. So bootstrap dist css bootstrap.css. Okay, and here we are designing the body, and yeah, so here we are designing the body, and we have the class, so container fluid, and here we designed some EMI calculator. Okay, and here we designed a div, and we kept here the class as a row, and here we are configuring the div. So here we have the option. So this is one call, class is equal to call, and we have another div. So, and here we have another class as call. So we can design a table, we can configure so as per the requirement here. Yeah. So this is the class as call. Okay, just we have these details so to configure. That means here we are adding some amount you need. So you need, and here we are displaying a text box. So that means here we are defining a text box. Input type is equal to text. Okay, ID is txt amount. Txt amount is the ID. Okay, so here I defined class as form control. Okay, and the next option we have is for years. For years, so we have input type is equal to text, ID is equal to txt years. So and the class is equal to form control. Okay, for years, and we have interest rate. So we have defined here interest rate. Okay, and here interest rate. So we configured option like input. So type is equal to text and ID is equal to txt interest, and class is equal to form control. So we are defining fine. Now here we have the options. So style, I will just add additional style. So here we say input. So type is equal to text. So then some. So here I defined width is equal to some 200 pixels. So or some 150 pixels. Okay. And here we defined some say percent option is there. Now this is the basic design of what we created. So this is the basic design here we created. We can keep the text beside them. So inline, we can arrange that inline and we can configure inline. Currently, these are just placing because form control is not inline. That is, so we need to keep the contents inline to keep side by side contents because by default, you know that form control will keep everything in a next line, right? So here interest rate, so I will keep this percent. You can keep inline. Already we know na, inline how we can use design and inline. Now below this, you are having another row. So we are having another row, and in this we have again the div. So the class as call. So we are having these columns. We are having the columns, 3 columns in that. And the same like here. So what we need to do is, so we need to design the sliders for them. Sliders for them. That means here I need to define input type is equal to range. Range keeps the slider. And here ID is equal to slide amount. Okay, slide amount. That is slide amount, and it is having the class called, you have form input range, form control range, right? Form control range is that option available. And here we are defining the values. That means we are configuring the value for that. Range, I can add the range here. So minimum and maximum values we can configure. The design will keep us this way, right? So the design will keep us that way. And for that also width and height I can add here. That means because we need 3 ranges. So that means same input type text, and we have input type is equal to range. Input type is equal to range, and it will keep the width fit to that. And the second row, so we put the style as margin top, or we can just put the class here for this. So class is empty. So margin top some 4 or 5. So margin top will be adjusted for that here. This is the row. We have to define another row also, na? Right? Okay, style margin top, because we have already so another row configured there. Little bit we will adjust for that, right? So 20 pixels, and it will keep it fine. Now here the value now important is so minimum maximum values to be configured there. The same like slider we required everywhere. So the same like slider required everywhere. That means here we are configuring another slider. So this is a slide year. And here we are defining another option is another slider. This is like slide interest. We are defining this. These are the options. Values you need to configure for that. So we need to define the values. We need to configure the values. That means suppose, so this is the form control range. Actually, so suppose here we are having, so ampersand hash, so 8377 semicolon. And this is starting from 1 lakh. So starting from 1 lakh. So that is from 1 lakh. We are configuring in this way. So starting from 1 lakh. So we can display the price as we required. So that is okay. I defined like this from 1 lakh. And here it will end this amount towards the end. It will be like some 10 lakh. Okay. And that is the price configured there. So, and we are not using that form control range. So because by default, it will be displayed in this way. And width need to be set for that adjusted. You can keep it below. We can add it below. So that means we can add these values below. We already learned about input groups and all that. You can try. Designs you can try. Here I will concentrate first on functionalities, then alignments and all you can try by your own. You can do that. And this slider also should get the value of that particular only. In that case, what we have to do now is we need to use here. So input type range. So minimum is equal to 1 lakh value. And max is equal to 10 lakh value. That's how we need to configure. So we need to configure. This is how we need to configure. We need to configure. That is how we need to define. That means we have to configure these values. We need to define these values and specify the values. That means it will be within that particular range, within that particular range, right? Now, so that the value will be in that particular range only. And by default value is 1 lakh. That means the default value will start from 1 lakh. Then that means it will be starting from here. Now, important is when you are moving this, the slider, when you are configuring this, the slider. When I'm sliding this slider, this value should reflect in this text box. I'm showing only one. Similarly, you can try others also. So because if I show one, you can try others. This value must be displayed inside this. This value must be displayed inside this text box. Value must be added into that text box. So that means how you can configure that, how you can define the value into that. While sliding, I need to display, right? What we can do is, what you can define here is, so we need to configure. So on change, right? We have to define on change. That means when you are changing, so we have to define that. So, and display that value, right? Then how you can manage that? Just you need to write an event for this. And what is that? Sliders usually have an event called on change. On change is equal to amount change function will be called. Amount change function will be called. So amount change function will be displayed. Then usually when amount change function is defined, so technically how we can manage that. So this amount change function is called in the script area. Let's go to the script area. So we will configure the script and function amount change. Now what we need to do is we need to get the value. We need to get the value from, technically we need to get the value from the text box, from the slider, and assign to the text box. So this is what we want to handle. So, and configure. So we need to display that. Then usually how this can be managed is first var collect the slider. That means var slider amount. We have slider. What is the slider name is? Yeah, the slider name is slider amount. Okay, I will give like this. Fine. Now I'm writing here slider amount is equal to document.getElement by ID slider amount dot value. Now we have another text box, txt amount is equal to document get element by ID txt amount txt amount, that is text box. Slider amount is slider. So only the controls we are collecting. So only the controls we are collecting. And what we need to do is, after collecting the controls, so we need to display. So after collecting the controls, we need to display that value inside it. That means txt amount, that is text box dot value, is equal to slider amount dot value. Slider amount dot value we are defining. So that is the option, slider amount dot value. Now here, what is the point is, generally when you are displaying this, so whatever the value you are moving here, this value have to be displayed. It should be displayed in their location. That means txt amount value must be displayed in the slider amount. Txt amount is a text box. You see, txt amount is the text box. In that value must be the slider amount dot value. That means whatever the slider amount value you are accessing, that value must be displayed there. So that means you see now, when I move that slider, so it has to get the value and display the value. So it should get the value and display the value. Now, very important is, many times this question comes here is, how we can display the currency values in a currency style. In a text box. Actually, for that we need to learn about currency formattings. So we will discuss about formatting. Through formatting, so we can access the value, we can identify the value, and we can put a proper symbol. It is not so easy like you can directly define a currency symbol in JavaScript. For that, we need to understand how to use the expressions. How do we configure the expressions? And we need to know that currency formats are there. But currency formats are not supported in every browsers. So formatting into currency is not supported into every browser. For that, we need to define the logics. We need to write the logic. According to the logic, we need to implement it. It's not like simply you write and it will apply. So we have to follow certain techniques, because one problem is browsers don't support all the currency formats. Suppose, see, this slider value we are displaying into the txt amount. I kept here as ampersand hash. So here ampersand hash 8377 and semicolon plus that slider amount value. That means here we are displaying the currency value, and you see that that is not accepted there. That is not accepted here. So why that is not accepted here? So because the point here is, why it is not accepted, because these text boxes are RC data elements. Am I right? You learned now? We discussed that they are RC data elements. They are RC data elements. So RC data means RC text box, text area are RC data elements. You remembered? So RC data elements means what? RC data elements means, so if you are displaying in a label, so if you are displaying in a paragraph, it is allowed. But if you are trying to display in a text box or text area, so it is not allowed. So RC data elements means the elements which will not allow any another formats inside them. Then usually how we can manage that? How we can access? Different approaches are there. Different configurations are there. For example, you see these people's design. So this is allowing the user to enter some value. It is allowing the user to enter some value. Suppose I'm taking here. So I am viewing the view page source. This is the page source. This is the page source. And in this page source, we want this amount you need. I will search for amount you need. Amount you need. So there is the option where it is how EMI is calculated, right? Where we have that paragraph. So that is amount you need. So okay, amount. So yeah, so here you have some this here to calculate the EMI amount, loan tenure. So you see here, they will give you. So the approach here, actually how to calculate the amount, EMI amount, monthly installments, how it is calculated. For that, you see they given a formula here. You can see they given a formula here. This is the formula you use. This is the formula you use. This is the formula you use. EMI is calculated by using this formula. That means you need to know how do we implement these formulas. I will give you an example of how we can write the formula and how we can implement the formula. And what interesting point you will find here is, so what you are looking at, so the values user is entering inside this amount and all, whatever user is entering the data here. Interestingly, you will find that there is no input type text box used anywhere here. There is no input type text box used anywhere here. Because dealing with a text box and presenting data inside the text box for entering the amount is very, very difficult through JavaScript based environment, and several browsers will not support them. Several browsers will not support them. That means actually this is that you are watching is not actually a text box. It is a CSS div designed. Through a div they are displaying that value, and through the div they can accept the values, input the values, and manage the values. There are two techniques. Every time it's not like that. They can allow a text box. They can use a div for designing. But remember, text boxes will not allow any formats for presenting. Then how do we handle these formats? How we can work with these formats? I will tell you. For that, we need to learn some more points. That means formatting of strings, managing the strings and presenting them. Actually, suppose, so this is not a text box. So if it is a div, so if it is not a text box, if it is a div, suppose here I kept a div, and we given an ID for this div as the txt amount. That is the ID for the div, and this div is configured here. Suppose that is a div, and usually here txt amount inner HTML, and usually that is a div. That is not a text box. Then it has to get the value and display the value as you expect it. But usually divs will not allow you to make the modification into it. That means it will not allow you to make the modification. You can display the value, which value it is, you can display the value. On change, we are displaying the value, but it will not allow to make change in that value. Input of value is not allowed. So that means now, so in different situations, if they want to allow the value also, if they want to allow the values and they want to display with the formats, JavaScript have to do lot of work for that. So lot of logic and functionality we have to write with CSS to display such formats. That is the reason the website that you are watching, this website, and here you see what they are using. Actually, they are using a widget. So they are using widget. Widgets are nothing but gadgets. They are actually jQuery widgets. jQuery gadgets will be there. These gadgets are ready-made, designed with that functionality. What you can do is we can just implement that and use it. This is where in JavaScript you can write. but it is very complex. So a lot of logic need to be written, and the formats are not supported on every browser again. These all issues will be there. That is the reason generally what we do is we use some jQuery widgets which are already designed with those functions, and we will implement those widgets. Such widgets you have to download from online. Later in jQuery, I will show you. Actually, jQuery widgets, one popular website. Suppose I have Telerik. You have Telerik. And you see inside the Telerik, I will go to the demos. Telerik is a third-party provider actually. And here I will go into jQuery UI demos. So this is jQuery UI demos. In jQuery UI demos, you can see that a lot of options will be there. So that means, so a lot of options will be there. And you see that, so you have a numeric text box, text area, text box. And when you use these text boxes, the masked text boxes and all, these text box have the ability to display so the values into currency format and display in the currency format. That means these are all widgets actually, gadgets. These are all gadgets. So when you select them, so you can see that they are displayed with a lot of predefined functionality. Because for that, actually, a lot of logic need to be written. So there will be so many types for that. Lot of logic need to be written. Instead of writing all the logic, they already written the logic. Just you have to implement it and use it. Just you have to tell which currency symbol it should use. This is all the concept I will tell you. I will show you in jQuery UI how we can use these widgets. Right. So now important is in these type of options, we need to read the value. That means we will not allow this. And this is value. And this is value. And usually this is the text box here. So that means input type is equal to text. So input type is equal to text, and it will display that here. And let's keep that as a class control. So we configure as we display the currency symbols. That is the reason several websites, what they do is keeping this inside the text box requires a lot of widgets. That's the reason generally majority of websites, what they do is they put those symbols here. If you remembered, we learned about input groups. Remember that? We learned about input groups. We can use input groups, we can use prepend, we can use append. By using the technique, we can manage them. But if you want inside, then you need to use some widgets, gadgets. So that means, see, if you remember, we learned input group. I will show you how you manage that. So here we are defining. So a div, and this class will have an input group. And here we have so a span and a span. And for this span, we are defining the options. So we're defining a div. So in that we have a class called input group prepend. And here we have a span, and the class we have input group text. I hope you remembered all this. And here I said ampersand hash 8377 semicolon. And below that, so here we defined, so input type is equal to text. So ID is equal to txt amount. The class is equal to form control. So form control, so is equal to form control. That is one option we configured. This is one input group defined. That means usually it will look like this. This looks like you have a good view for that. And you know that you can add a div, and this is the class as input group append. We learned about that. And we put a span here, span, and it will use the class as input group text. And here we configured. So here we configured so 0.00. We configured that 0.00, and it will display in this way. Now, when I move the slider, it will get the value and display the value in this way. So it will display the value in that. So that means the point here, when you are dealing with these kind of interactions, it's not like always you have a text box. Inside the text box, you put the currency symbol. It is not possible. So in every kind of application, that will be an issue. That is the reason different people use different approaches. So if you are interested in using widgets, gadgets, so because you have a special requirement for that, you can use those gadgets and display the values. For that, we will learn how to use jQuery widgets, which can allow such kind of things, right? So we don't write any logic for that. We just implement and inject that functionality into it so that it will allow. Otherwise, we need to design by using all these mechanisms. Now, finally, same, you have to design for years. You have to design for interest rate. Now, the key point is finally, when I click on calculate, it should calculate that amount and display that amount. That means you need some mathematical calculations in the background. Amount you need, so how many years and interest rate. For that, I will show you, I will give you a formula. You try to implement that formula in this example and try. I will show you one example. I hope I have already some example. So in some batches with that. So I will give you that example so that you can try. So yeah, some EMI example. Yeah, you see, this we designed in a different way. This we designed with just only text boxes. You put slider and text box and design. I will give you this logic code. And because this requires only the formula, and I will give you that formula. How to calculate that. You have to use this formula. And collect the values from those controls and design. You see here, I am entering the loan amount here. So loan amount here. So, and I am entering the months, number of length in months, 12 months. And interest rate is 5. And monthly payments. So click on calculate. It will calculate and display. And the amount is changing. That is 14 lakh 5,000. And calculate, it will be 12,000. Monthly payments. The formula I will give you, design you implement in a HDFC style, right? The formula I will give you, this is already designed. The formula I will give you, just you need to collect the values from there and finally show the result just like a HDFC. This requires some mathematical operations to happen in the background. That mathematical formula is defined here. So we need a division, we need an multiplication, we need an subtraction, we need an addition. Based on that, we can perform these operations, right? Now, this example I will give to you, that example is already having the formula inside the code. What you just need to do is, you have to create the design like this. And finally show the result somewhere at the bottom. When user clicks on calculate, collect that. So return the result and show that result there. So will you able to try that? Will you try this? Huh? What do you say? Will you try this example? Right? Will you try that example? I will upload this example. Design you have to borrow from HDFC. Formula I will give you. The implementation, everything you have to do. Just if you can do that, that's great. That means you have implemented one real world widget that is used by bank applications. So that means the formula already I have that. I will give you that, right? So that means example also there. Only the point is change these text boxes. Only the point is change these text boxes. What you have to do is these text boxes values, put sliders and move the slider, that value will come there. And based on that, calculate should display the result in some div, show the result. Just like HDFC, how they have shown the result. You in div, you try to show that result. That means HDFC is showing a div, and in the div, they are displaying that result. The same you do. Only one work you have to do is design this design, right? And calculate, on calculate, click, collect the values from these text boxes and use those values here. Use those values here. That is important, right? You try to do that, that will be great. That requires all mathematical formulas. How do we handle the formulas? How do we work with the formulas? That is done by using the arithmetic operators. And these are all the arithmetic operators we are having: addition, subtraction, multiplication. And this is, and in this, they have used this power. You can use math instead of math power. You can use this double asterisk. So in the EMI example I showed you, they have used power. So instead of using math power, you can use this new option there for implementing that. For every concept, you need to know the formula. So then you can implement that and you can handle it, right? This is arithmetic operators. Now we have relational, logical operators and other types of statements. With examples, we will see how to manage them, right? That we'll see in our next session, right? Monday, we will see that. So by Monday, try to design this EMI example. If you are facing any difficulty, in the class, I will show you how to design that example, okay? Right? In the class, we will see how to design that example, right? Thank you.